Hello and welcome to India Fights Back. This is Rajat Kain joining once again on the show that brings the latest on India's fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Well, on Monday, Prime Minister Modi addressed the nation assuring India's fight against COVID-19 in right pursuit. One of the key takeaways from his announcement, aside the policy measures, was free vaccination for all across the country, anyone who is above 18 years of age. So basically, anyone who is vaccinating themselves, who choose to vaccinate themselves and is above 18 years will be getting vaccine for free. Of course, amongst the move which has been, among discussion was capping the service charges for private hospitals. This is a move, of course, in right earnest. That's what the larger consensus is. And that has been capped to rupees 150 per shot. Now, how this move of free vaccination and, of course, and procuring vaccine at a larger pace will help, among another move that government announced, what Prime Minister Modi announced, was that centre will procure vaccine for states as well. 75% of vaccines procured would be by the centre and remaining 25% is open for private hospitals. Now, how important is this change in policy? To discuss further on this move, we joined with Professor Narendra Arora. He is Chairman of COVID-19 Working Group of NTAGI. Many thanks, Professor Arora, for joining us. And Dr. Dhruva Chaudhry, he is State Nodal Officer for COVID-19 for State of Haryana and also Professor and Head of Department of Pulmonary Department from PGIMS, Rohtak. Many thanks, Dr. Chaudhry, for joining us. Let me start with you, Professor Arora. As we start the program, how important do you think was this change in vaccination policy that was announced by Prime Minister in his address to nation last evening?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I must say this will be considered another milestone in the management of COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Ever since there was policy change from 1st May onwards, the vaccination drive became slow because the overall, the way things were going on till 30th April, there was a sudden change and many of the states could not kind of arrange the vaccines as it was envisaged. And clearly this was a very important move. And as our vaccine availability improves in next few weeks, I think we would be moving at a rapid pace to immunize as many people as possible in this country. So I really compliment the Honorable Prime Minister and the policy that now there will be a central procurement and everybody will be able to get the vaccine without any payment.
Right. So before moving to Dr. Dhruva Chaudhry, I just want to ask you one small question here. So, I mean, there has been, of course, there was a clamor for this policy change. There were a lot of states were asking Centre for Procurement. How will it ease out the procurement at large and availability of vaccine? Basically, let's admit there has been shortage of vaccine, which is why the centre has to act. And of course, this is the decision that we are seeing, that was announced by the Prime Minister. So how this change or this revision would help in procurement of vaccine at large?
You see, this has...
Yeah, please,
yes, Professor Arora?
Yeah, Dr. Arora, please.
Yeah.
You see...
Thank you very much. So the whole issue is that we must remember that CoWIN platform has primarily come on a supply chain IT platform, and it's a national platform. How the vaccines have to be distributed, what kind of a flow of supplies is to be maintained so that there is no stock out. This is the backbone of the whole exercise. And now once the source of the vaccine is a kind of a single source, that's central government is deciding on that, I'm sure this supply chain is getting restored in this process. And this will ensure that whatever vaccine is available, it moves in a smooth manner in various places, and it will also decide how many immunization centers are to be maintained, depending on the availability of supplies as well as depending on the demand for vaccines in different centers. So this is a very complex exercise on a whole, at such a large number. If you remember, on first 2 weeks of April, we had almost 75,000 immunization centers, while later in different, it came down up to 24,000, and recently it was around 35, 40,000. And ultimately, when we want to immunize the whole 1.4 billion population, we would need about 100,000 immunization centers. It's a very complex system. And unless it is under a unified command, I think the supply system, supply chain maintenance would keep on getting disrupted if it is not done under a unified command. So I think it's a great move forward. And it will ensure a predictable movement of both supplies as well as availability at the point of delivery.
Right, certainly. Many thanks, Professor Arora, for your opening remarks. Yes, Dr. Chaudhry, you were saying something. I'm sorry, that question was for... Please go on, sir. Please go on.
Yeah. Dr. Arora is looking at it from the center's perspective, and I think he's right in his perspective. Now, there's the state's perspective.
Right, absolutely.
Because when we come up here, and probably we are seeing state after state has shown, after the policy change in the past, the shortage of vaccines which are not available to them. And this is the question which I had also raised in your program and also on another TV channel, that you have taken away 50%. Now you say 50%. Now the question is, now the market has opened up for all states. Now if I am asking from my state, how I am going to get from the only 2 manufacturers? Now there are 20 other states that are asking for it. So there is the clamor, and the numbers are phenomenal. So I think that somehow, probably in the process of decentralization, when it was done, to give more this thing, as Dr. Arora himself has accepted it, that the numbers of vaccination centers came down because states finding it difficult to buy. And similarly, the second thing you must have seen is that the states trying to go outside the country. Unless and until DCGI permits them the licensing, how can we go and procure them from the states? It was more of an exercise to tell the people, yes, we are doing something for you. I think with this policy change, 25% again, it has been allowed to go to the private sector, where they can do it. I think it will ease, but what is good point will be, at least I feel, that probably 25% increase in the vaccination is going to be there. But end of the day, the thing we need to look at it, how it gets implemented and how much increase in the vaccines starts coming from, because unless or until we scale up our production, again, it is all from the Indian manufacturers. So we have 2 manufacturers. So I think by the end of June, maybe July, we will start seeing some easing of the problem. Secondly, we expanded too fast because under public pressure, we just expanded it too fast without even ensuring it that does our healthcare worker or our people from 45 to 65 plus above have been vaccinated or not. Now, because suddenly you have expanded it too much, from 10 you have gone to 100, and you continue to have a supply of 8, what do you expect?
Okay, that's important. Right, certainly.
So we increase the denominator. So that's where it has been there. Now the government has realized it now, and then you create a competition within the states. That's what I exactly said. Now I want X, another state wants 4X. The cost differentials will come up. Then later on, somewhere down the line, 3 years down the line, the audit comes. Then the officers are scared. Somebody will haul them off of why they were purchased at the higher rate when the other state has taken it. So a lot of these administrative issues started cropping up. And in looking at it, I think it's a welcome step. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, the responsibility again has been on the states to make the policy in terms of 18 to 44. I think some uniformity needs to be brought in there. Otherwise, we'll again see the same sort of the confusion which has happened now.
Right, Dr. Chaudhry just told us this very important point that you have raised in terms of having uniformity. But prior to that, again, you said that we somehow expanded it too much, possibly under public pressure, or there's some other reasons. Professor Arora, like, do you also agree that there was a sudden expansion of the scale of vaccination? I know that we, of course, given the size and complication that we have, it's world's largest mass immunization program, and of course, credit goes to our system for at least having it to an extent where we have vaccinated large number of people. But did we expand too much too soon, sir? Your just a view about it.
So, yeah, no, in fact, I will be very upfront on this issue. And so the country had prioritized vaccination for those people who were likely to acquire infection and who were likely to get more severe disease and death. And when we look at that, our frontline workers, people from the services, municipal employees, they are obviously at the front line and they were the first one. Followed by that, it was 45 years plus because the risk of hospitalization and death is almost 15 times higher in this population as compared to the younger one.
Okay.
And that was the priority group. And world over, that is the way rollout, because after all, there is limited supply of the available vaccine. Now, there is another issue in our country is that we have a population of about 30-35 crores above the age of 45 plus these frontline workers. But between 18 years and 45 years, the population is 65 crores. And 65 plus 35 makes almost a billion population, which means we would require 2 billion doses to immunize that. And therefore, this relative vaccine shortage occurred because of this sudden expansion. Because from 30 crores, our target became 100 crores or 95 crores. So there was this issue for various reasons, as you are mentioning. But
no, I'm not mentioning any. I'm saying there could be any reason, right? I'm just seeking a view here.
So there was there were several
several factors to it. Right. Yeah. I mean, needless to go into those factors.
Non-technical factors were there, but now taking this as the vaccine availability improves. Now the whole target today is that we should be able to immunize somewhere between 7 million to 10 million individuals every day.
Okay.
In other words, in a month, I should be able to immunize between 20 to 30 crore people.
Okay.
And that would require so many doses. And as we see now, as these number of vaccine doses are available, and over from, I think, toward the later part of June and July onwards, initially we should be having around 15 to 20 crore doses per month. And very soon it would crowd 30 crore, August onwards, it should be more than 30 crore doses per month. And then we should be able to move on very swiftly to cover most of our population.
Okay. Right. Dr. Chaudhry, you were saying that basically now responsibility once again is on the shoulders of state. And of course, like there has to be some uniformity in the policy. Please elaborate further on that, sir. That's really important.
See, the government has said it. You see, the procurement component they have sorted out. So the rivalry between the states goes away. That's the reason that if you see it, that practically every state has welcomed it across the political spectrum. I think that's a good part of it.
Right.
The second part is that when you're saying, okay, it has now left, instead of the center, to the state to prioritize between 18 to 44. The question is what criteria people will take between 18 to 44. Are they diabetic? Are they hypertensive? Are they obese? Whatever it is. I think, so again, we need to have a uniformity of policy there. Because it may be different in Haryana, it may be different in Punjab,
certainly,
may be different in UP or this thing. So that itself will create a lot of confusion. And like we are seeing in the management protocols. So I think it is important is that general guidelines should be given from the government of India, advisory may be given that this, ideally the criteria, you should follow it up. Then state customize as per their need. That part is fair enough. But you need to have, that is one part. Secondly, I think, I hope I'm as optimistic as Professor Arora is in terms of supply chain. We have to ensure supply chain maintenance. With numbers coming down from 75,000 to 35,000 now of vaccination centers, how do we expect it to be? Therefore, I think the intent is plausible.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dynamic change which the government is adapting that needs to be accepted, and that needs to be, again, we need to acknowledge and commend it. But having said so, my biggest problem coming up, which I am seeing, is the supply chain management.
Right.
In terms of, let's say we allow 5-4, let's say Sputnik is coming up. Now we are hardly finding, I'm sorry to say it, but where is the data of safety? Now we have increased the duration of Covishield now, looking at 8 to 12 weeks, sir, which when it should have been done, it was. Now we are finding that its efficacy is 60% with 617, that is the Delta strain which has come up. Now we need to find out the safety, efficacy. We need to be far more vigorous actually, because with one shot, we are now the data from the UK is, which we are extrapolating, is 33%. Now, if I wait with the 33% protection with one, and if I'm giving second now 12 weeks, I think we need to have more and more data to change and do the policy. It should have been done right in the beginning when we were doing it. That probably would have given us more vaccines. So it is only science also. It is also in the logistics also. I think we need to look at it same way when you are looking in terms of Pfizer or Moderna, which I think DCGI has either cleared or is in the processes of different vaccines which are coming up. With this particular strain, we need to have and see whether it is effective or not. Because if it is not effective or breakthrough infections are going to go up, the whole program will go down. In all, I'm all what government is saying, but as a scientist, I am putting this question. And Dr. Arora, nobody can be better than Dr. Arora sitting is there. So I am certain they have deliberated on these issues and they're extremely aware about it. But I think we need, because these are the things which are needed to ensure people that vaccination which we are doing is safe, is effective. And I think it is now time, sir, please put in public domain with the studies which have come up yesterday between Covishield and Covaxin. In one, you are finding more antibodies, but breakthrough infection rate is less in the other one. That this is the data which is coming up. These are the observations which is there. But it is extremely important that we need to move very rapidly and sharing the information in a transparent way. Science should take over. Along with it, yes, when you look at a policy, we took at a general purpose point of view. And second is, when you're talking of 25%, that the companies or the manufacturers can give directly from the Indian or the outside. Again, that will be your bone of contention in terms of policy. So if I can say I wait 25%, if I am getting 1,000 and it government has the power to leverage it, here they are giving you at X amount, again they are giving you 2x there. So preferential will again go there. So I think there are a lot of issues which are of implementation. In terms of, this is a great step ahead, I'm not denying that.
Right.
But at the same time, we need to look at it in terms of how to handle it, and will the private sector will be allowed to import it once the DCGI allows it. And then looking at the efficacy, I think these are very real challenges we are facing in the field, being asked from different people because of now social media activity to us every day.
That's really, really important, Dr. Dhruva Chaudhry. You've raised certain extremely pertinent issues concerning logistics, efficacy, and of course, like parts of policy as well. And as you mentioned, that will private sector be allowed to import? Well, certainly keeping that bit aside, that's a policy domain. But talking about the science, Professor Arora, in terms of efficacy, what does the data say is the ones that we have so far?
So I really compliment Dhruv for raising this issue. That the key issue, first of all, I think we are talking in the context where the worst is over as far as the current wave is concerned. And you're right, he's right totally that 617.2 was the variant which hit us really hard. Now, second is data. There are 3 or 4 data are coming. One, the data which Dhruv is mentioning, which is very important and which shows that just presence of antibody is only part of the story. The immune function of a vaccine is dependent on, I would say, visible and invisible components of the immunity. Visible function is antibodies, invisible is T cells or cell-based immunity. And therefore, what it indicates is that breakthrough infection would be, I think, the key criteria which we should see when we are in actual field conditions. because sometimes these laboratory indicators, obviously these were initial beginning points, but over the time what we are learning is that the key issue is breakthrough infections. And now there are at least 3 studies which are available. One which has been published from PGI Chandigarh, which shows it is among health providers, whether it is a single dose or a double dose. They were all Covishield vaccines. And it showed there is a about 2% breakthrough infections with either of the two, whether it is a double dose of Covishield, and severity was much less. Very few required hospitalization, and there were no deaths. So that is one piece of evidence. It was among almost 3,500 individuals who were immunized, and there were equal number who was unimmunized. And clearly, those who were not immunized, the breakthroughs were several times higher, and they required more hospitalization. There is another data coming out from another chain of private hospitals. I'm privy to that data, and which is again showing that whether it is 1 dose or 2 dose, with both Covishield and Covaxin, the breakthrough rates are between 1.5 and 2%. And so what it is appearing is that the true value of the vaccine can be derived only when we get the data from our own country. And the reason is the immune response to a particular vaccine, and particularly vectored vaccines, behave differently in different settings because of the prevailing adenovirus infections in that country. So it appears that the increasing the interval is not something which will be inimical. Particularly, I'm talking about in relation to 617. Even today, the innovator Andrew Pollard, who developed the Covishield vaccine, he also again endorsed the Indian stand. In fact, even when we had the meeting, he was one of the special invitees. That this, from 2 months to 3 months, this increase is totally in line with the evidence, as well as in a contextual manner, it is an appropriate step. So overall, the third piece of evidence I would like to quote here is that whether we are talking about Sputnik vaccine or Johnson & Johnson, these are also single dose vaccines are also available, and they have high vaccine efficacy. So I think let us wait. And now I would say, as Professor Chaudhry has suggested, a national vaccine tracking platform is being established, which will come out with very regular feedback, not only for the policymakers, but also for the lay public, that what is happening, what kind of breakthrough infections are taking place with different vaccines, as well as different number of doses of different vaccines, which makes these issues more transparent. So there is a lot of effort moving on in this direction, so that there is better confidence in everybody involved with vaccine program across the country.
Right. Certainly, we look forward for more data on this particular facet of vaccine, and of course, the gap between 2 doses. That's what has been discussed on a lot of counts. But for time being, we can say the policy change, there is a consensus. It's in a right direction. Of course, there are some issues, some challenges, which happens with every new program. So certainly, we are all hopeful that it will smoothen out as we get more and more vaccine doses with more production. Well, many thanks, Dr. Dhruva Chaudhry from Rohtak, for joining us and elucidating on part of challenges before the state with a new policy as announced by Prime Minister Modi about free vaccination for all and 75 procurement of vaccine by the center. And many thanks, Professor Arora, for, of course, taking us threadbare as to what this policy is, and in terms of, the mass immunization program, which way it's headed, and what is that we have to look in future. Well, before we leave, a small appeal to all our viewers, and that's what even experts keep emphasizing in the show. If we are vaccinated, well and good, but truly, this pandemic needs to be defeated by following simple instructions of science and nothing else. And these are physical distancing, keep washing your hands, and of course, keep wearing your face mask. Remember, these are small little things plus vaccination that can help us in defeating COVID. Thank you. Goodbye.